We sound the same. That's what's coming up on the Art of Bombing, episode 159.
My friend Dan, he's got a podcast, 'cause all comics need a podcast, and nobody had a podcast called The Art of Bombing. So Dan went out and bought a tape deck. Who knows why he bought a tape deck? Now podcasts don't get played on tape decks, but Dan is from the 80s. So hey there, all you funny jerks, come talk to Dan about your work. Tell him all about your worst times. It's The Art of Bombing.
Welcome to a brand new episode of The Art of Bombing. I'm Dan Bublich Jr. here with you on this fabulous Tuesday. It is September 15th, 2020. I hope the week is off to a good start for everybody. Today on the show, it's a great show. Today my guest is Jalen Russell, and he was my first in-studio guest since the beginning of the pandemic. I don't remember the last time I had an in-studio interview. It's been that long. But he came in, we did the socially distancing, we wore masks. Not while we recorded. While we recorded, we were, socially distanced. But, so that's what's coming up on the show. We had a great conversation. He talked about... had a story about bombing at Acme Comedy Club right after surgery when he about died from almost losing his hand. Yeah, that's talk about a real teaser, right? Now that's a sizzler. I don't know if that makes no sense at all. I'm not good at this. Why am I doing this today? I don't even know. But that's what's coming up on the podcast. Before we get to that fabulous conversation, though, we do have to handle some business. Got some things to promote. Before we get into that, let's see. Next Monday, September 21st, Renewed will be back with a new format. I'm going to have multiple comics on the show. Should be a good time, and then I'm going to try to do it every other week after that. So that'll be a cool thing. That is presented by The Art of Bombing. That's streamed live on YouTube and Twitch and on Facebook. So check that out if you ain't got anything else going on next Monday. Should be a good time. This Friday, I will be in Sioux City at Marty's Tap at 8 o'clock. Tickets are $10. I am getting ready for my dry bar taping, so that'll be fun. Then on Saturday, I will be at Boss's Comedy Club in Sioux Falls at 8 o'clock. So there's some live comedy dates coming up. If you want to check that out, I would greatly appreciate it. The last thing I want to promote, if you haven't done so already, go to the website and sign up for the mailing list. I'm putting together a mailing list. I'm gonna start doing probably a monthly. We'll start out slow. I don't want to spam people with emails, so I think what I'm gonna do is a monthly email, and it's just gonna be a recap of the month and all the episodes and, fun things like that. And there's going to be some special stuff that I'm going to do with that I don't want to talk about it because I want you to sign up for the email and find out what those special things are. So go to the artofbombingpod.com, sign up for the mailing list. And if you haven't done so already, make sure you have subscribed to the podcast wherever you listen to the podcast. Leave a 5-star rating and a wonderful review. I would greatly appreciate that. Those words and those reviews really help other people discover this podcast. And I think this podcast is a great tool for comics to get better. I mean, what better way to get better at comedy than learning from other people's failures, right? We're gonna laugh at somebody else's failures. Oh wait, that's not nice. That's not the kind of podcast we are. Not trying to be mean, but we are trying to get better, and that's a good way to get better, by learning from mistakes. So that is all I got for the business today. Let's get into this conversation with Jalen. Enjoy.
Eventually, if you took an urn and you shook it up, eventually your dad's tongue ashes are going to touch his butt ashes. That is not dignified, okay? That is not dignified. Also, I want to start a business. It's like part ice cream, part morgue. It's called Cold Stone Crematory. Like, can I get some Oreos and Grandma? And they're like, they roll it up. I don't know. I haven't been to Cold Stone in a while. I'm lactose intolerant. That's one of the reasons why. Also, I don't want to pay $8 for a little thing of ice cream. But there's, again, I'm thinking about dignity a lot. There's no, like, dignified way to find out that you're lactose intolerant. Like, you don't get, like, a letter or a decree from, like, the king of Wisconsin, and he's like, I decree, thou shalt shit thyself. If the barista be too high, and you don't get your oat milk. I found out in a cat cafe, you guys.
Sound a lot alike.
Yeah. I think we kind of do. It's like...
We do actually
Yeah.
sound a lot alike.
Yeah.
People are going to be listening to this episode and they're going to be like, is Dan just having a conversation with himself? Did he finally lose his marbles?
I think we did, other Dan. This is all just you, just in your bathroom, just talking to yourself in the mirror.
Exactly. I mean, we kind of look alike, too. So,
Yeah.
I mean, if I had a little more hair, man.
I think you, me, and Tito, we could be like the brothers of the Twin Cities comedy scene.
Right? Oh, that's funny. Yeah. Yeah, but it's like I said, it was crazy listening back. I'm like, God, man. Friggin' voices, man.
Yeah.
Friggin' voices. So, have you did any digital comedy? This is the first in-studio podcast that I've done in a long time. I'm going to throw that out there, guys. We're in the studio. We're socially distant. We got sanitizer. We got masks. And we're not wearing the masks right now because, you know, we're apart, and that'll muffle the microphone. We don't want that. So, but yes, it's still a pandemic. We're trying something new here.
Yeah. I did do a handful of like the virtual mics.
Mm-hmm.
I did one. I was like not optimistic going in, you know, like they did the Instagram ones. Someone's like, yeah, someone figured out you can do it on Instagram. I go, that sounds fucking terrible.
Right.
And I did Derek Meyer's one, and nothing against Derek. It's just like the platform was just not like not meant for it. And it would just be like you and one other person, and you're just telling them your jokes.
Yeah.
You know, like when someone finds out you're a comic in a not comedy like context, and they're like, "Oh, tell me a joke." I'm like, no, I don't.
Yep.
I don't want to. I don't think that's a good idea. And then you just tell them your jokes, and then they look at you. Like that's what it was. It's just like saying jokes to like a blank stare.
Yeah. I think that platform is better suited for like storytelling.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. The
where- 'cause,
storytelling works.
Like for Instagram anyway. I mean, there are platforms for virtual comedy where stand-up actually works. You know, with like Zoom or whatever, it can work. But like with Instagram, because I did a few Instagram things too at the beginning, and I was like, yeah, this is weird. Like, I mean, you got one person, and if they don't laugh, it's definitely awkward.
Yeah.
I mean, you got the people can interact, you know, through text or whatever, but you don't always have time to like pay attention to.
well, and that delay was like 5 minutes long sometimes.
Yep.
And then when someone like signed off, then they'd be like, "All right, Jalen, your turn." Jalen, are you there? And they just, like start getting mad as if you're not paying attention, but you're like 5 minutes behind, you know.
Oh yeah, yep. Because you're watching, and then all of a sudden, oh hey, yeah, I am here.
Yeah. And like, all right.
I didn't
Jalen,
realize
go.
that about the delays that they were that bad. I mean, I knew there was a delay, but that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I did see that a lot where they're like, well, I guess they're not here, you know, and
Yeah.
they're like, well, I guess we got to move on. And then all of a sudden, oh wait, they are here.
Yeah. They hear the echo of the call, you know. I did another one. It was for like a small music festival, and they had like a comedy hour, which just turned out to be like when we did it in person like last year, it was like 3 people who either had done comedy or wanted to do comedy, including myself, who had been doing comedy. And this time it was someone rolled a joint before me, on stage, like on camera, and then I went up after that. So that was like, you know,
that was it. That was the whole. That was
the
their
comedy
time?
hour. Is them like rolling a joint and making jokes about that, and then me.
Oh wow!
And I was like, all right, you guys, like, just so you know, like, keep your mics open. That's totally fine. Like, I want to hear you, even if it's like a groan or something. And it was just me and one person the whole time. It's
oh man,
it was bad. And so I hated it. I did like 10 minutes of nothing. I had set up the living room. I like got the lighting out. I like set up like a diffuser and everything, and I got done with that, and then like shortly after, Andrew Brynildson from the Monday Night Comedy Show messaged me on Facebook. He's like, "Hey, do you wanna do this?" I was like, "No, I will never do another virtual show ever again." He just caught me at like the worst time. Yeah. So
and then you haven't did it since. Or have you did some? No.
I have not done one since then.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was like, did you hold out and hold true to what you said, or did you actually he caught you at a bad time and then you decided to do it? I did the Monday Night Comedy Show, and that one's been kind of fun. That one's been fun too, because they've there's a way where you can leave some of the comics in like through StreamYard. And so there's some audio of people laughing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And now they've been doing it out of a studio, partly out of a studio, partly with the, comics.
Yeah. See, that I'm down
or
with.
Whatever.
I just need like 5 people, like some semblance of an audience.
Yeah. And that's what I found. The Zoom shows are good if they let the people be unmuted, as long as they're not like talking over. But like if they're just listening and laughing, it's cool. I mean, there's still a delay. It's still awkward. It's not the same as live comedy, obviously. But at least you can hear the laughter, and you can kind of, if they have their cameras, you can see some expressions or whatever. But then like StreamYard's better for doing like talk shows and like podcasts and things like that versus storytelling shows versus doing stand-up comedy, because you don't have no reaction.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I've did a few and like I said, I've had all kinds of kind of mixed experiences. The ones I've did recently have been pretty fun.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I did you had a storytelling one that I did, and that was fun. I think that format worked for storytelling, and I hadn't really done any, so I wasn't I have short stories in my set, but nothing. I'm not a story comic, but I would like to do more of that. But, it's hard to work that into your 3-minute set. It's like a 5-minute story.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's one of the hardest parts about open mics, especially the 3 minutes. Like, if you want to be a storytelling, it's like by the time you can get anything accomplished, your time is over.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a feat. Have you been, now that things have kind of been opening up a little bit here and there, I know there's some open mics and stuff that have been happening. Have you did any of them, or?
I've done a handful of them. I did the Muffin Top, hosted by Sarah McPeck. I did, I signed up for the Acme one, but I didn't get on that week or whatever. I did Uproar, and that was really good. It was outdoors. They put like baby socks over the mics as like mic condoms.
Oh, that's funny.
And that was like really good, and the crowd was awesome because it was outdoors, so you could socially distance, but still have a crowd.
Yeah,
like there were probably 70 people there. If
I
not
did
more.
A couple outdoor shows, and they were fun.
Yeah. So I think that's like what I want to be doing comedy. Like I don't want to do it indoors where it's small and weird and sad.
Yeah. Well, and even so, like because I've done a few now inside, and I've been like basically trying to be as safe as I can, have my sanitizer, wear my mask, stay socially distant from people. Pretty much as soon as I can, I'm in and out. You know,
Yeah.
I don't want to be hanging out. I don't want people like hanging close to me.
Yeah.
But I'd much rather prefer if I could just perform outside.
Yeah.
Which is funny because a year ago, if somebody would have been like, "Hey, you want to do an outdoor show?" I would have been like, "No, that'll be terrible. Outdoor comedy sucks." Because I've done plenty of outdoor shows and they sucked. But now it's like, no, let's do it outdoors.
Yeah, that's the best way to do it. Yeah, no, you need a room with a low ceiling. Like I used to like walk.
No air ventilation.
Yeah, I used to walk in a room and like this is not the shape for comedy. This is an L-shaped bar.
Yeah.
How am I going to perform comedy in these conditions?
Now it's like, I don't even want to be inside.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird because I've definitely had mixed feelings on it. But like, I got to get ready for some stuff I got coming up. So it's like, well, I have to go out and do a little bit, but I'm still afraid. Like anytime I go anywhere, I get like super paranoid. If I start getting a little tickle in my throat or whatever, I'm like, oh fuck, I probably got corona.
Yeah.
I'm like, shit.
And you guys, you rescheduled your dry bar thing, right?
It got rescheduled.
Okay,
yeah,
awesome.
Yeah. So now that's what I got to get ready for. That's unless I mean, with things kind of spiking and who knows what'll happen, but it's scheduled for October. So
okay, cool.
We'll see if it goes through this time. But that's something I got to get ready for, and I haven't performed in like 3 or 4 months or whatever.
Yeah.
And when I have, it's been sporadic or online, doing some online shows, and that's just not the same as performing for an audience.
So is that a half hour that you're doing?
25 minutes.
25 minutes?
Yeah,
Okay.
20 to 25 minutes is what they have you do. So at least it's not a long time. Like, if I had to do like a whole hour right now and do like basically, clean hour right now, I don't know that I could do it just because I'm so out of practice.
Yeah.
It's
So
more just being out of practice.
Yeah. So you have to get a few like book shows because like you couldn't do that with like open mics. You can
I mean, and some of the open mics are a little, they still help. Like if what I've been doing now with getting ready for that, I've been going through some of my older stuff and some of the stuff that's really clean that I can use, kind of reworking it into the set. So like what I'll do, like if I go to a 3-minute open mic, I'll do a variation of a joke. Like I have an objective, so it still helps. But yeah, having book shows where I can do longer sets, way more helpful.
than for sure.
doing 3 minutes, but
Yeah.
we make the best with what we got right now.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to.
And like I said, I did go up to St. Cloud to their open mic last Wednesday. I went to the Keller, and Matt gave me like he was like, "Oh, you came all the way up here. I'll give you 10 minutes. We don't have a ton of comics," and did 10 minutes, and it was fantastic.
Yeah.
There was a decent crowd. I mean, it wasn't a big crowd, which is fine under the circumstances.
Yeah.
We don't need
It's kind of
packed
exactly
room.
what you want, unfortunately.
Well, under the conditions, it's exactly what you want.
Yeah.
You want people that are going to laugh and be into the show, but at the same time, you don't want a wall-to-wall room full of people. So it was actually pretty good. The amount of people versus the space, I felt like it was really good. And then, I had a pretty good set, too, so that definitely helped.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so that helps. And I like I said, I had a lot of fun there. And that's one where I'm like, okay, now I could see going up there more often just because of having access to more time and,
It's
and
worth
an
it.
audience.
And
an audience.
And they're fun, and they don't, like, see... I don't know. They don't have the opportunity to see you like every week. Like I know some people come to the same mics every week as attendance, and so to go up to St. Cloud and be like just a totally different person. You're not their neighbor. You're from outside.
Yep. You're somebody they're not going to see every week essentially. So yeah, because you're right. Because that's one thing with comedy too. Like when you hit open mics and stuff, you run into the same people, and a lot of times, a lot of comics just do the same jokes over and over and over and over and over, and some even years and years do the same, like they don't ever evolve.
Yeah.
So it's like you go and you just see the same comedy over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Which can be a little rough sometimes.
I have a few of those jokes that like I've gotten kind of sick of telling. Like not sick of it, but there's things that I think are funnier that I want to explore. But then I know that they do well, and that's kind of why I'm like I've got the I look like kind of jokes, you know, and not a whole lot of fun to do. But if it's like a totally brand new crowd that I know has never seen me, I'll whip that one out. I got 5 minutes to burn 30 seconds, you know. Like,
yeah, and the nice thing about that, you know, when you like you said, if you have a new audience or whatever too, a lot of those I look like they're good ice breaking jokes too. So you know, throwing 30 seconds to kind of break the ice is a good tactic, really.
Yeah. And that's kind of how I used it. Is it's like I look like the kid from Up. He got his patch for identifying psychedelic mushrooms, and then like that just tells you a lot, like right there.
Yep.
So like, all right, I know this guy's weird.
This guy's weird, and he's probably going to talk about drugs.
Yeah.
There's probably going to be some drug talk up in this right now. Yeah, but that definitely helps. But I mean, that's a nice thing. I mean, that's the thing that I don't think a lot of comics realize is that, you know, you don't have to do your best material every time, especially at an open mic. You know, like once you have material because you got to constantly build, because that's essentially we're all trying to build an hour, 3 to 5 minutes at a time.
Yeah,
you know, you do the open mic, and once you got this material that's working, you put it on the back burner, and you pull it out when you do book shows and longer sets. And then, you know, you work on your new material. But like I said, there's so many comics that just never, at least it seems like they never work on new material. You know, they'll do that 3 to 5 minutes and that's it.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, I don't know. It's like, how do you evolve?
Man, I guess that makes an hour seem a lot more attainable, is 3 to 5 minutes at a time. Even if, like, you know, your jokes are not necessarily in a 3 to 5 minute block, but thinking about it that way rather than how do you write an hour is so daunting.
Oh, really? It really is, and that's the nice thing, because it's like it doesn't have to, like, a 3 to 5 minute, like you said, that 3 to 5 minutes doesn't have to be the same chunk of, like, it doesn't have to be a chunk of the same material, like one long joke or whatever. It's just a 3 to 5 minute set, and then you get this 3 to 5 minute set that works good. You put it off the side, you build a new 3 to 5 minute set. Then when you're doing a 10-minute set, you have these two sets, and now that 3 to 5 becomes a 6 to 10, and then, you know, so on and so forth, and eventually you got the hour. And just stringing that together.
Yeah, putting together my first 10 was like, I pulled everything I had. It wasn't even like 2 solid 5s. It was like 2 solid 3s and like an awkward 4, you know?
That's usually how it goes, though. I mean, especially when you're starting out, like, and I see this, we see this a lot. I just had a conversation with a comic on the podcast, Justin Foster, whose episode just came out a couple weeks ago, but he was talking about how one of the gigs where he bombed, part of the reason is, you know, they wanted him to do X amount of time, and he really didn't have it. But, you know, you get this where you're like, I can do that. It's not a problem.
Yeah.
I can do whatever amount of time they want me to do. And then it's like, it goes horrible. And you're like, well, you tell other comics, if you don't have the time, you probably shouldn't do it. But then at the same time, the other side of the coin is, well, you won't ever get the time if you don't actually force that's where you basically force yourself to have to get the time. When you agree, like, all right, I'll do 20 minutes, and you know you have 5 minutes, you're like, all right, well, now I got to come up with 15 more minutes.
Yeah.
Whether it's good or bad, I'm doing 20 minutes.
Wow, so you had to do a 20 when he only had 5?
Well, I don't know if that was his exact,
yeah.
but that was, you know, the example is, you know, I mean, he probably had a good 10 minutes, I think, at the time, and he had to do like 20. I don't remember the exact numbers, but that's a lot of times how it usually ends up going.
Yeah.
Where it's,
well, I never would have put together a 10-minute set if I wasn't obligated to do that 10-minute set. Mm-hmm. You know, I would have just kept making little jokes here and there and throwing them in my library, but not stringing them together into something cohesive.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, and I know I definitely did that where I've taken a gig, you know, be like, oh yeah, I can do an hour, and then I'm like, I really can't do an hour.
Yeah.
Like not a full what they want kind of hour. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, yeah, I got a good 30 minutes, You know, I got a solid 30 minutes, okay 45 minutes, and a terrible hour.
Yeah. And it's all the same material, you know?
Pretty much.
You're just like stretching it out.
Yeah, that's and that's a lot of what it ends up being, is stretching it out. But it's, even though it, you know, like I said, it's one of them things where it's like, you shouldn't do that, because then you bomb or the show will go terrible. But then it's like, well, but it's also kind of a rite of passage, because if you don't, will you ever push yourself to write that kind of material? And then once you've experienced it, you're like, oh, okay, I got to take this a little more serious.
Yeah. And is that mostly clean, that when you're doing those like hour-long book ones? Or
it depends on what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I do. Oh, we got a little motorcycle running by. Yeah, I have the window open because we needed air up here. It really depends on what it is. Like, corporate stuff is usually pretty clean.
Yeah.
You know, like if I'm doing like a bar show or something where I'm headlining, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know, but a lot of the hours that I end up doing when I do an hour, I mean, because honestly, 45 minutes I feel like is pretty good, but sometimes they want like a whole hour or whatever, and but a lot of times it's clean. So, which I can do, just it's not the greatest.
Yeah. Todd Skoda put together like a clean comedy open mic thing, which is so funny knowing Todd Skoda. Mm-hmm. But, you know, I was like, okay, that's a good challenge to like, because a lot of my stuff is dirty, and that's just like what I find funny, but it's not the, you know, I could write jokes that aren't dirty. Mm-hmm. And that's what I told myself.
Yeah, and it's a good tool. Mm. Writing clean is a good tool, because that's where a lot of the money comes in. You know? Yeah, you can always find work as a clean comedian, like, because you can go anywhere and do clean comedy essentially. But you can always, you know, be dirty, you know, in the sense where like you can, if you have the tools to be a clean comedian, you're going to have way more opportunities to get booked. But that doesn't mean you have to work clean all the time, you know? Like, if you're doing a bar show, you don't have to be the clean comedian. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
You know, it's just another tool in the toolbox.
Yeah. Well, I went somewhere, I think it might have been Galactic, and there were, like, children in a booth in the back corner with their family, and I had been, like, working on, like, a dirty joke at the time that I was planning on.
Jesus.
Yeah, terrible parents. You know,
right, I'm like, this open mic you're talking about doesn't start till, like, 9 or 10 at night.
Yeah,
it goes, like, till midnight. Why are there children there?
Yeah, so if I go tell my jerk-off story, I'm not the worst person there. The worst person is the person who kept their children there that late.
Yeah, especially on what was probably a school night, because that's like a middle...
That's like a Thursday night, yeah. But I think they were young enough that they didn't have school. So I was like, maybe I can get away with that kind of story, because they won't know what that means. And yeah, it definitely kind of makes you not embarrassed of your content, but embarrassed of your lack of content that isn't age appropriate, you know?
Mm-hmm. No, that's a very good way to describe it.
Yeah,
because that's really what it is. It is your lack of content.
Yeah, because if I had seen that, I would have been like, all right, I'll do my clean stuff, and you know, whatever, fine. But you know, the host had to ask people like, so there's a family back there, and who wants to go first? Because I know like you probably don't want to go, you probably don't want to go. Like putting at people
like. Probably shouldn't have any of you guys. Yeah. We should probably just cancel this.
Yeah, we should probably just wait for someone else.
Just postpone this. Yeah, that definitely happens. I found too that it is good to have, like, when you have extra material, being able to change your material, in the sense that, you know, I've experienced where I was doing jokes that the audience wasn't responding well to. And they were probably a little more edgy or whatever. And then it was like, okay, they're not really into these jokes. They're definitely not going to be into these jokes.
Yeah.
So I need to not tell them. But I still have to do this time. So now I got to, I'm going to do some of this material that, you know, I don't necessarily do very often or whatever. But I know that it'll probably have a better chance of getting them than this other material.
Yeah, you pivoted away from that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had that. I did the Uproar show at Due Nord, and there was like this group of women there, and I had done some joke about It was like inappropriate for sure. It was like about there was this kid who graduated from the U of M. He was like 8 years old, and he was banging puss at a college level, and, and they were just not into that at all. So I was like, all right, I'm a fucking pig. And then it kind of like picked up some giggles, and then I kind of like worked my way around that, and then like avoided all of the jokes I was planning to come after that.
That's funny.
And just pivoted to like some puns and got my way out of there.
Yeah, and that's, you know, that's funny too, because some comics will do the opposite. Well, instead of trying to pivot away, they'll own it, and then they'll just push it all the way to the end. You know what I mean? Like, they're just like, oh, you're not into this. Well, you're definitely not going to like this. And that's another example. It's usually because they don't have any other material.
Yeah.
You know? It's that lack of content.
Yeah, like the, fuck you don't like what I got, then I'm going to give you more. I've tried that, and it doesn't come off cool when I do it, you know? Some people are like, oh, they do like a cool, handsome smile and like work their way through the whole thing. I just look like this weird little troll. Well, if you don't like that, then you won't like this.
You and me both. That's what we're just a couple of little mean-looking trolls.
Yeah.
you got. We'll be the trolls of comedy.
Yeah.
That'll be our special.
Yeah.
And they'll be like, oh, so these guys must be assholes. No, we just look like trolls.
We just look like trolls. We're really nice, actually. Pretty cute if you squint, but
yeah. we just look like trolls. Short little gnome trolls. You know? You're just like, those guys are adorable. We should put them out on the steps.
Yeah. Hey, you have one out on your steps.
Do.
Yeah.
That's some out on my back porch. Yeah.
Well, it's so funny. I was like, I think I'm in the wrong house.
Like, you're like, wait, I don't think I've ever been to a domesticated comedian's house. It's like, there should be like bars on the windows, and maybe somebody passed out in the street. He should probably have like 10 roommates.
Yeah, or like, a dinosaur or something goofy, but the gnome was like, all right, maybe this is an old lady's house or something.
Oh, that's funny. It's funny because I've had some jokes about being a gnome and looking like a gnome or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's why it's like, to me, it's funny.
Yeah.
Because people are like, oh, Dan, you just look like a gnome and blah, 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 blah. So they're funny to me. But yeah, it definitely doesn't look like a typical comedian's house.
Yeah.
And that's because of the domesticated part.
Yeah.
My lady does a good job with the yard.
Yeah.
All her flowers and all the vegetation out there.
Hide your masks.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny, too, because actually, hiding my mask, yeah. So pissed. I'm like, where the frick is my mask? It was just here. It's funny because I give her a hard time about that, because she does it not just with, she does that a lot, where she likes to be clean and organized, and, I get it. Totally understand. And she'll put stuff away, and my stuff, when she puts it away, she doesn't really... There isn't like a spot where it's going to be. It just like vanishes. And then I'm like, I know I left this here, and I'm walking around the house like I'm crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I know it's here. I left it here. Where'd it go? And then finally I'm like, did you do something with that? And then she'll be like, well, she'll either forget and not remember doing it.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, I don't think I did. And then I'll end up finding it, and then she'll be like, oh, yeah, that's right. I did put it there.
Yeah, that's right. I put them in the marble drawer. We have a marble drawer?
Yeah, I'm trying not to lose them. Keep them all in one place there for you. But the gnome thing, it's funny because I went to Comic-Con one year, and I did that as a costume. I just did a gnome.
Yeah.
I dressed up as a gnome. Oh, yes. Cute little gnomes. But, this has been a great conversation, but we haven't talked about what we're here to talk about yet, and we need to roll into that.
Talk about bombing.
Bombing, yeah. Let's hear this story.
Okay, do you count a first set ever as bombing? Because I don't know if I believe I count that as a bomb.
I mean, honestly, no. I mean, in the sense that I think most people bomb on the first time because you don't know what you're getting into. And there's like a lot of different elements that could cause that to happen. Like a lot of times, because you've never done comedy before and nobody really talks to you, or that you're like the new person or whatever, nobody tells you about the light. Mm-hmm. Often comics end up running the light, and they're not, their jokes aren't working or whatever, but they're still trying to go because they have no clue what they're doing. And so that adds to kind of the bombing or whatever. So to me, it's not necessarily bombing as opposed to it's more lack of experience.
Yeah.
That was a long way to say no. It's not bombing. It's lack of experience.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I don't think I had the words for it, like the lack of experience versus a bomb, because you can bomb and have been all right. Like. Yeah, I'm not going to say I'm experienced, but,
No, I mean...
I've done well on shows, and then the next time I go up, I've bombed.
I mean, well, and that's the one thing that's interesting about bombing. Like, comics at every level will admit that they bombed at some point. Even comics that are like, everybody has an off night. And even comics that are, headlining theaters, sometimes they still bomb. They have a bad set or a crowd or whatever, whatever the situation is. So it, like, happens to everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had a handful of sets where I just totally bombed it. The worst one ever was it was after I had, like, an accident. And it was after my accident. And... I went to Acme. I thought that would cheer me up to, like, go use my star at Acme. I was like, I got material. I have a 10 minutes that did well. I can do 3 minutes at Acme and, like, I'll do well. So everybody's, like, hyping me up. They're like, yeah, man, like, I can't believe you haven't done this one yet. And the first two people ahead of me were brand new. They both ran their light. Like, they weren't funny yet. I mean, not a judgment on them, but they didn't succeed at what they were trying to do because they were new, as I did as well. But it just, like, the crowd was not warm. Because that place, there's no host, there's an announcer, and so the crowd wasn't warm. And I go up there, and I look sad. I'm just, like, a sad-looking piece of shit. I'm in my, like, hand brace, because I had, like, cut my hand. So I'm in this hand brace, and I go up there to adjust the mic, and I can't do it. So this lady, like, reaches up and adjusts the mic for me, and
oh man!
And I was just also I took an edible beforehand.
Oh, that's bad.
I took an edible beforehand, and
well, that's the problem.
Yeah, it was a lot of bad things that I thought it wasn't even like cockiness. I think it was just like not thinking about all these things. Like, all right, bud, you haven't done stand-up in 3 weeks now, and now you're going to get high and go to Acme and bomb.
Cash in that star.
Yeah, and I was using, like, because I know that, like, dark stuff goes over well at Acme, so I'm like, all right, I'm going to use my dark stuff. Went up there, and it just didn't do very well, and someone didn't like a joke I said because they thought it was something, I can't even remember which joke it was. They didn't like that. And then so I got off, and everybody was like, they didn't tell me good set. Like, you could do okay, but feel bad about it and be able to go, oh, you had a good set.
A good set.
And you're like, no, I didn't. But no one said anything.
No, because we're like, we're not even gonna patronize you.
Yeah, we're not gonna patronize you. We respect you enough. And
we're just not gonna talk to you so we don't get that stench of that bomb on us.
Yeah. And I walked out of there. I had to just, like, cool off because I felt bad. And then two people who had been in the audience were like, oh yeah, you were just up there. You're like the cringy guy. When, like, I don't think any of it's supposed to be cringy. It's just cringy because I did bad.
It's like, I don't know that I want to be described as cringy.
Yeah. I can remember her exactly because her glasses were just all smudged with grease, and she just, like, looking through them like, you're the cringy guy.
Oh, that's funny. It's funny too when you have an awful experience on stage, like where you bomb really bad, and then somebody comes up and talks to you afterwards, and it's not helpful, but, like, it sticks with you.
Yeah.
Like, I have that with a show where this guy came up to me after the show, and I still think about it. It still haunts me. The thing that he said to me, and I'm just like, oh man.
What did he say to you?
He said because it was a corporate gig that I had felt like I bombed at, and it was actually the gig that, you know, listeners of the show will know, because it was the show that inspired this podcast.
Yeah.
But at the end of it, this guy that was hosting the event, he was sitting at a table, comes up next to me, or I was sitting at a table waiting to get paid, and he comes up next to me and said, "Keep going, you'll get there." Yeah.
Hey, that's encouraging.
Yeah, but it was after watching him and the other co-host were just like killing with their jokes, but they were doing like Ole and Lena jokes and Scandinavian humor and stuff you get on the internet.
Yeah.
And so that, of course, all their stuff was just killing.
Yeah, and they weren't comics,
No,
right?
they
were
weren't
just like
comics. No,
people at
just
the company who were like the funny guy.
Yeah. Yes, that's exactly what it is. They host this event every year. It was for they were EMTs. It was an EMT association thing, and like I said, they host it every year. They're the funny guys or whatever, but they're doing all this, and then afterwards he said that to me, and I was just like, oh, get the frick out of here. It's like, at least I write my material.
Yeah. And they're just like, Robbie, you did so well. You did way better than the professional.
You should have been the professional. Yeah, exactly. They should have paid you to do the comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh,
yep.
man.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I've had like other people where I used to do a lot of puns because they were just easy to write.
Mm-hmm.
And I had someone come up to me after, and they're like, "Hey, that's having a really bad day." And then you told your joke about the eggs, and I really like that. It made my day a whole lot better. And like, so,
Yep.
sometimes people come up to you and they don't give you advice. They just say like, "Hey, that was great."
Yeah,
you know?
no, and that's good. That's awesome when somebody comes up and does something like that, especially when they go out of their way to tell you made their day, because that's what really that's what it's all about, trying to make people laugh and have a good time and forget about whatever they're trying to forget about.
Yeah,
and if you accomplish that even with one person, mission accomplished.
Yeah, exactly.
Job done well.
It was just kind of funny because I was like, really, that joke?
Oh yeah, I've had that too, where I've did, somebody will come up and be like, "That was so funny," and I'm like, that's the worst joke I tell. But hey, if you enjoyed it, then more power to you.
Yeah.
It's like, that's a crappy joke, but whatever. You liked it, bam, it did its job.
Yeah.
Did its job. So like How was the experience after having the edible? Do you feel like that really contributed? Because I've found, for me, I have performed under the influence both with alcohol and weed, whatever. I try not to now. Like, I don't perform under the influence now because of bad experiences, but the using edibles and things like that, or being stoned, I did not like the way I felt, because I could feel slow.
Yeah,
I felt not I'm more of a higher kind of energy, faster paced comedian, and when I was stoned performing, I just didn't. I felt like I was moving in slow motion, and I did not like that feeling at all.
It's like the slow motion, and it's like a disconnection a little bit from the audience, where I'm very much in my head, and I'm always in my head, but then when I'm high on stage, which I don't, I keep telling myself I'm not going to do that, and I think well, maybe this time
this time it'll get better.
Maybe this time it'll be a little bit different, and it never is.
Some comics do fine when they're stoned.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's comics that get stoned before they perform or get drunk and they do fine or whatever. I'm not one of them.
No. I forget all of my jokes. I have bad timing, and
Yep. Yeah, like I said, I've only been stoned one time on stage, and because like I said, it was so horrible that I couldn't do it again. I was like, "There's no way."
Yeah,
I've been drunk a couple times, but that's when I'm the worst. If
drunk?
I get super 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 drunk, I'm very terrible.
Yeah,
very unprofessional, and
I can do a 2 beers before I perform, but I save any I don't even drink that much anyway, so I'll have my my 1 or 2 social beers.
Same here,
and then
1 to 2,
and then I'll perform. But even then, I probably won't even drink after that, and I'll smoke after that. Fine, but not perform that way because I'm just sloppy and dumb and slow.
Yeah.
And I have to go up with my notes anyway, so being stoned and looking at your notes and going like, okay,
trying to
up,
focus and
and then looking down again like, okay, what was it?
What? Yeah.
Have you ever started a joke a second time during a set?
I'm laughing at that because I just was listening to some sets and I posted about one of the sets about how I was like bombing and I heard one of my friends just laughing. His laugh was distinct amongst all the laughter, and that's what was happening. I was trying to do a bit and I kept like I'm not necessarily doing crowd work, but I kept like starting the joke, and then I went off on a different tangent. And then I was like, what was I talking about? Oh yeah. And then I did the setup again, and then I went off on another and so and every time I went back to try to tell the joke, of course people were laughing and laughing harder and harder at it just because it ended up becoming the joke. I was still trying to do the joke. So that's why I was laughing really hard when you said that. Yes. I've definitely did that.
See, I've intentionally told a joke a second time during a set, and it actually did well, because I think I was not doing well. I'd done this joke, and it did very well. And then I told another joke, and it didn't go well. And went like, all right, well, you guys like my other joke. So, and then I told the joke again. Then they got like a pretty good pop. I'm like, I'm out of here.
I actually had one set where I was trying to do a joke I hadn't done in a long time, and I couldn't remember how it went, and so I started it, and I was like, oh wait, no, that's not how that's not how it goes. Let's hit the reset button.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, we're gonna go back to Nintendo. Reset.
Yeah.
And then I started to do it again. I was like, nope, that's not it. And I did it like 3 or 4 times before I finally said the joke how it was supposed to come out. But then that ended up being really funny to the audience because I kept saying, oh, nope, that's not it. Reset.
Yeah.
And I kept starting the joke over every time. I would tell it to a point, and when I was like, nope, this isn't how it goes, I would start over from scratch from the very beginning. And I did that like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
And then I finally got the joke out, and of course everybody laughed. Not necessarily because the joke was funny or good, but because with restarting it over and over again, they got a good kick out of that.
Yeah. So that's, and I think there's a lot of value in that kind of in the moment sort of humor too, what's the point in telling if you had gone realized oh, I'm telling this joke wrong, bailing out on it is worse than starting over, and finishing a joke that isn't going to hit right because you've set it up wrong is worse than bailing out. So telling it over again. Yeah. And then that repetition thing is okay, is this part of it?
Yeah, they don't know.
Yeah.
But I think too with that though, if you were doing the repetition on purpose, unless you can really play it off, I think that would get old fast. For audiences, it's going to come off as fake, but in the moment, it's definitely funny. And I've had that where not just doing that same kind of thing, the repetition thing, but I've had where I have told a joke wrong or something, I'll tell it wrong. I'm like, wait a minute, you know what? That ain't how that joke goes. I'm going to do that one more time. And I'll be like, we got to get this right. And then I'll do it over. But, yeah.
Yeah, when it's sincere, it works. Yeah. It's not do you listen to Real Big Fish? They have this song called Suburban Rhythm, and
I'm only laughing because usually I'm wearing a Real Big Fish hat.
Oh, okay.
And I actually
Perfect.
thought I was, but I'm not.
So they have Suburban Rhythm, and they do the many genres of Suburban Rhythm, and it's exactly the same way every single time I've seen them, but it's still fun because they're cheesy. Yeah. They're known for being cheesy, so it works.
Yeah, they signed my joke book.
Oh, okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, I went and saw them, and they signed my joke book. So I'm a Real Big Fish fan. But definitely the repetition can definitely work on things. The build, because it's the build up too, that you're creating tension essentially, and then when you finally break the tension, you get that bigger pop.
Yeah,
which is always good. I just think I've seen comics, especially comics where you're like, oh, the first time you see them, you're like, oh, wow, that was really good. They did some really good crowd work. And then you see them again, and they do the exact same thing. And it's like, okay, so this is planned crowd work.
Oh,
and
they write out their...
Well, yeah, like they do the same kind of scenario. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh.
They look for a guy in a polo shirt, and they have all their, like, douchebag jokes.
They're loaded crowd jokes or whatever, crowd work jokes, and it's just like, oh.
And that's
so
the entire appeal of like crowd work comedy is that it's off the cuff, or at least like perceived to be off the cuff. But
yeah, well, and I think a good performance, like at some rate, like a good set, you should have something. Because you're essentially we're trying to create an experience for the audience, and there's nothing like an experience if it's something only they experience.
Yeah.
You know? So like if something happens and you respond to it, that it ain't gonna happen at your next show. Now these people got a whole different show than whatever your next show is gonna be.
Yeah.
So it essentially is now this cool experience for just them, but. I think when you force it just, I don't know. But people don't, a lot of, regular people that are watching comedy, they don't know it's being forced, so.
No. And they're not going to go see it a second time.
Yeah, exactly. So to them, it's like, oh, this was great. They did all this crowd work off the cuff, and I'm just like, oh. The bumming and bombing, that dreadful feeling you get after you bomb, how long does that typically last for you?
Oh, man. It depends on the bomb. That Acme one was like, it was so bad because, people would like, in the months before that, they're like, yeah, you've done Acme, so you know. I go, no, I haven't. They go, really? Dude, you do really well. You're going to do real well. Like, what are you even worried about? You got a great 5 minutes. You could do 3 easy. I'm like, okay, cool. Go there, and I was really depressed from my accident,
Yeah.
and so I thought like this would cheer me up, and I went there and I bombed, and someone recognized me as the cringy guy, and like I just like, hyperbole, but like I just wanted to kill myself, like why do I want to? And I had almost just died like 3 weeks prior, and I was like, this makes me feel worse than cutting
your
my
accident
hand off.
was that bad? Like
yeah.
I remember you cutting your hand. I guess I didn't realize it was that.
Yeah, I severed 8 tendons in my right hand from my pinky to my index finger.
Oh wow!
So they were all like cut off from each other. Basically.
Oh okay, yeah.
So I'd almost bled out.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
I guess I didn't realize that. I remember the accident, though.
Yeah.
Because I remember you walking around, you were casted up and
Yeah.
everything or whatever. And I remember you were in the hospital for a little bit, too.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
And like, now, separated from that bomb, I go, no, the accident is way worse.
Yeah.
almost dying on the job is way worse than bombing.
Yeah.
But at the time, it just feels, because it's like, it's public embarrassment,
Oh, yeah.
Like that's kind of the thrill of comedy is being put in front of like a group of people and being judged on whether or not you have value as like a humorous person.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's that instant gratification.
Yeah. And then for them to all go like, we put thumbs down on that one.
We
That was
hate
bad.
you.
We hate you. You should hate yourself. And yeah. So it kind of depends. Usually I feel bad about it for a bit. Like I did comedy at the Crane a couple of weeks ago, and I went up, didn't think I did like I had a couple of pops here or there, but I didn't feel like I did particularly well. Went home, didn't feel so great about it. Woke up the next morning, and I was tagged on Instagram, and I had set of the night. It's like, man, I still feel bad about this one. This feels like a dirty win. Like I should at least feel good about my set when I win something like that.
Right?
Yeah. So, the bummer, it depends on like the severity of it. I think bombing in front of more people would feel worse than in front of less people. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, sometimes less people just still sucks because,
well, sometimes it's harder to perform for less people too. I mean,
yeah.
Because, and that's one thing I've kind of realized over the years. And now I can, like, when I first started out, I had a hell of a time performing for a couple of people. versus like, you know, I could perform for like 300 people and it didn't faze me. Then you put me in a room with 2 people and I'm like, I'm just super like uneasy and nervous about it. But it's like, laughter's contagious.
Yeah.
When there's only a few people, people are afraid to laugh.
They're they need like
self-conscious.
permission to laugh almost.
Yeah. Yep. And so when you have larger crowds, you know, they're going to be they're going to be, you know, because other people are laughing. And next thing you know, this group's going to laugh. And then, you know, everybody's laughing. But when there's only a few people, they're like, well, I don't know if I should laugh.
I don't know if you've deserved it yet.
Or it's not even that. It's more of, do I really want these people to know that I think that's funny? You know, because then that puts judgment on them. It's like, if you tell a edgy joke and it's funny, and then somebody laughs, and they're with a group of people, and it's a small group, like, say they're the only people in the audience. You got a table of 4. That's it. And their friends don't laugh, but inside they think that's the funniest joke. But they're like, oh, I can't laugh at that because then they're going to think I'm a freaking twisted weirdo.
Yeah, it's like a restraint thing.
Yeah, it's definitely a restraint, yeah. Well, yeah, people are self-conscious about it. Afraid of what their friends are going to think if they laugh at something like that. So there's definitely a safety thing when there's more people. People are more relaxed and wanting to laugh. Now, I do going back to the accident real quick. Okay, because that pertained to the
set. Did you get a good look
I did.
at it?
Yeah, that's a good scar.
Yeah.
I should probably put that on the gram. That'll be your profile.
Yeah.
That'll be your picture. Just be your hand. No, but because you said that you were having trouble with the mic stand, and a lady from the audience had to like adjust it for you.
Yeah.
So like, at that point, is that where you just like you totally just lost? Do you think the audience felt more bad for you than anything? You know what I mean? 'Cause, like, sometimes when an audience feels bad for somebody, like on a personal level, where they're like, "Oh man, this poor guy is having a hell of a time."
Yeah.
They don't laugh, not because they don't think you're funny, but they're like, I just feel bad for him now. Like, they can't laugh because they just feel sorry for you.
Yeah. That was, the accident really did affect, like, my comedy, because it's just this bright white plastic brace on my hand, and it was so soon after that, like, I'm still really upset about it, but you can't not acknowledge it, you know?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You know, you
have to.
You can't not acknowledge the elephant in the room. And so I was, like, forced to talk about it in front of people and address it, and I wasn't funny about it yet. So it was hard to do that. So that definitely because I also addressed my hand, and I don't know. I was kind of bitter about it. It was like a smarter me would have not had done that show. Like, if I, like, cut my left hand now, I would not go up within a month of my accident.
How would you? I mean, you have to go up. I mean, at that point, don't you, instead of going up and being sad, you go up and try to make fun of the situation and make it funny? You know, like, that would be my takeaway from it. If I had an accident and I was all sad and depressed about it and it affected my comedy, I'd be like, okay, well, if this happens again, now I got to not stop comedy, but I got to incorporate this in the act in a fun way.
Yeah.
And make it a happy thing where people aren't, feeling sorry for me.
And that was my thought on it. I think it was just it was not a good accident. I, like, lost all my
Well, I'm not saying it was a good accident. I'm just saying that, I mean, I get that, and if you, in a serious accident, you have to take time off from comedy or whatever, totally get that. But when it starts affecting your psyche, that's where I'm like, well, maybe it is good that you're getting up, because if you let it consume your psyche and that kind of thing, it's a bigger effect than just the physical injury.
Yeah, and I think it did help me get over it, but it took like a few bombs to get over it first, you know. Like,
I guess because to me, I just feel like, because like I said, sometimes audiences get too sympathetic, and I feel like
it was a little bit of
them watching a lady help you with the microphone, you know, so they're probably like, oh, we can't laugh at this poor guy.
Yeah, well, and the worst part
because
is
then
like,
they feel like if they're laughing, even though they might find your joke funny, they instead of laughing at the joke, they think, well, if I laugh at this, he's gonna feel like I'm laughing at him.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Well, it was kind of planned that I would struggle with the mic.
Oh, okay.
Like I was like, I
That's a
wanted to
different-
look like I was struggling with it,
different
but then she
dynamic.
helped me out and kind of like stole my thunder.
Okay.
So it went from like, you know, in Willy Wonka when he's like hobbling over with the cane and everyone's like, oh, that's so sad. And then he like does a tumble and roll and pops up and then, oh, it's Willy Wonka. I didn't have that moment. It was like if I had been hobbled and then someone like helped walk me over.
yeah. That's funny. Because, you know, and that's another thing too where like, you're, you know, because you said you were on an edible too, where that kind of probably slowed thinking down. But in a situation like that, where it's like, oh, I'm gonna do this, it's gonna be kind of funny, and then that happens, you're like, well, I didn't expect that. So then, what the next move to me would be like, well, struggle with the mic some more.
Yeah,
like she adjusted it wrong. And like get her to come back up and adjust.
Someone
it again.
gave me that same note that night, and I was like, "Where were you, like 3 minutes ago? Like, why didn't you directly inject that into my head? Because I could have done a whole 3 minutes on struggling with
just
the microphone.
having her like and incorporating her in the act. Where you're like, oh no, that's not quite. Can you lower just a little bit? And then she like lowers it and be like, lower. No, actually, you need to come back.
Yeah,
up. Like,
well, in a comic, it like well, I had a few people tell me that, but another comic had said like you could have done a whole minute on struggling with your microphone, and you know, yeah, and so it was, you know, it was like good advice from people that are like, hey man, like I know you don't want me to patronize you, but I'm gonna give you advice. Like you could have worked that out in your favor.
Yeah, it's all about trying to turn the situation around the best you can.
Yeah,
you know that's for sure. When you bomb, how do you analyze your sets, or even if you do good, what do you try to do to improve the next performance?
Yeah, I always record my sets. I don't always listen to them because some sets are kind of just so wishy-washy that I don't know if there's a whole lot to glean from it. And I also kind of take into context like how other people did that night. Was the crowd just never that warm? Did I just suck? You know, and I've kind of like made it a point to not blame the crowd. You know, because I've seen people not do well, like 5 people in a row not do well, and then someone goes up there and just does really well, and I go, okay, it's not the crowd, it's us. So I try to take all those things into account. Some sets are really painful to listen to, you know?
Yeah.
Because you can just like... Because one, the best thing you can hear when you're like recording on your phone on stage is your own voice, and then like you can hear laughter in the back, but it's so much quieter. So even a good set doesn't sound like a good set.
Yeah. Well, and that's something I try to do that helps with that is not bring my phone up on stage to record, but to set it off, like if I can either have it in the back of the room or, you know, close to the stage, but somewhere where it's not just going to be me, but it's going to capture laughter.
Yeah.
I don't know. So that's just something you might do going forward.
Yeah.
But yeah, because sometimes you have that same thing where you're like, oh, on stage, it doesn't sound like they're into it. And then you listen back to the recording and you're like, oh, wait, that wasn't as bad as I thought.
Yeah.
They actually.
Yeah, it's almost never as bad as I think, except for when it's an actual bomb.
I've had recordings where, like, after I got done, I'm like, yeah, I bombed so hard I don't need to listen back to that.
Yeah.
Delete.
Yeah.
I just delete the recording right away.
Yeah.
I'm just like, yep, I'm not going to listen back. I know what happened.
Yeah. Yeah, you had asked me to, like, look up or to think of a story of, like, a really good set I had, and I listened to that recording, and I remember it going very, very well. And I listened back to it, and, you know, it was like that outdoor show, and so there was no place for me to set my phone away from me, and, you know, it was just naturally not going to capture all the laughs.
Well, not every, and the thing is you can't, not every situation is ideal to put your phone out in the crowd. You know?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Because even me, like, I'll try to, if I can put it out there, but I'm still like, okay, I don't want to put it in the very back of the room because I don't want somebody to walk by and be like, oh, phone, and just walk off with it or whatever, you know. So totally get that. Where it's not, you gotta make do with what you got.
Yeah. Yeah, but that show was it was kind of funny because it started off good. I had already I endeared myself to the audience before I even said the first word, and then it all went good from there.
How did you do that?
So it was the Uproar show, and I had brought my own mic, and so Davon brought me up, and he's like, "This guy has so much privilege. He brought his own microphone," and so I kind of went up there, and then Comrade had this spray bottle with alcohol in it, and he sprays all the mics, but then I put up like that so I put my arms up so he could spray me down, and so people kind of got a laugh out of that, and then I went into my
So you almost did this whole wrestling heel type thing.
Yeah. And then I told my joke about looking like the kid from Up, and it was just all these things that worked in a row, and then I just kind of rode that wave.
Mm-hmm.
And every joke I had was one that I knew did well, and so I just did all of those jokes, and it felt really good. Even a handful of I told one joke that I had written on my way there, and that did okay for what it was. But that one felt really good. And there's another, I did the Sisyphus show. It was the New Kids on the Block or New Kids on Tap, something like that. And that was my first 10-minute set. And that one, it was just all people who were invited by other comics. So it was just a good crowd.
Mm-hmm.
It was very they had the intention on going there and having a good time. And I think that's a big thing, is people wanting to have a good time.
Oh yeah, that's why comedy works in comedy clubs better than it sometimes it does in bars, because a lot of times in your bar shows, people didn't show up for comedy. That's infringing on what they came to the bar to do, which is drink and watch sports.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, sometimes I feel at some of those bars as that I'm getting in the way of their nice night out.
Exactly it.
Yeah. And then someone goes up and tells an abortion joke or something, and I have a handful of those, but I don't whip them out all of the time.
Or right off the top.
Yeah,
right
out of the gate. Top, yeah.
Right out of the gates. That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so the Sisyphus, you were talking about that a lot of people were there to see the show, and it went good.
Yeah, that one was good. That was my, I said, my first 10-minute set, and I'm not really a crowd work person, but I did crowd work because I knew that the majority of them were there for one person.
Mm-hmm.
And so I made some jokes about that person, and they liked that. And then I had a joke oh, has anyone ever taken a dick pic? And they're all these young 20s, maybe in a frat, St. Thomas sort of people, and no one raised their hand and was really? The friends of insert comic name here have never sent a dick pic? All of them start laughing right away, and so it was, yeah, that one worked out really good. I think I was in a comfort zone, and I knew people were there to laugh, and I was able to kind of take advantage of that, and especially paying attention to other people's sets helps your set.
Yeah, absolutely.
Addressing the things that other people addressed, whether
or not addressing things that they addressed.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's one of my biggest pet peeves is when a comic will have an interaction with somebody, or something happens within the room, and the comic later was not paying attention because they weren't in the room, and they go up and they try to have that same interaction, and it's so awkward because then the audience is like, weren't you here?
Yeah.
We already went through this.
Yeah.
So it's very important about being in the room and paying attention.
Yeah. On one hand to support your friends, and on a way more selfish hand to have a better set.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah. I always feel not necessarily have to watch the whole show, but you should at least watch the person that's, before you. And if it's a show where you're doing longer sets or whatever, at least watch, maybe pop in and out, or watch the last 10 minutes or so just to, kind of gauge how the audience is or whatever. and just, because like you said, because then you can add on to that, and then, it's that building, because then that happened, that created some tension or whatever, and then if you can, piggyback off that, you're going to create more tension and a bigger pop off of it. So that's definitely something we definitely need to do as comics. Pay attention.
Yeah. Well, we're also used to being like the center of attention. That's exactly what we're doing. So it's like someone else is getting attention.
Screw this guy.
Not interested.
Yeah, I don't want to go support this guy. I know that they're not going to support me. They're going to get off stage and go outside.
Yeah, they're going to go smoke a cigarette. Or talk loudly in the back of the room over my set.
Yeah. That's something, too, that has cracked me up. I've seen people who have dabbled in comedy, and they'll get upset because the comics won't pay attention to them. They have no idea how comedy works. They don't understand that a comedian wants to come in, they're going to have their head in their phone or their notebook because they're working on whatever material they're going to do. They want to go up, do their time, and then get out or go outside and smoke, whatever it is. And I've seen comics get so pissed about it. They're like, it'd be a lot nicer if the comedians were supporting each other, or instead of every time you go up they just run outside and they don't actually watch the show and this and that. And I get it, I get their argument, but at the same time I'm like, we see so much comedy, you got to see it from their perspective. Sometimes you see so much comedy that you don't want to see anymore. And also, you see too much comedy, you start, absorbing other comics' material. Yeah. And then, not necessarily purposely stealing it, but then you start having ideas that are very close to what you heard. And not because subconsciously you heard it.
How do you feel about that? Like, piggybacking off of, not exactly I guess a premise, someone has a joke. I've done that before where someone's started a premise. I went, that's really good. And I went off on I didn't even listen to their joke. I'm thinking about how I would write if I had that little spark of an idea.
Well, I mean, the thing is that it's one thing to have your own perspective on a premise or a subject versus stealing somebody's joke. You know what I mean? Because there's no original premise. Everything's been done.
That's kind of my
you know what I mean? You have relationship material, there's dating material, there's parenting, there's all these different categories of material and premises, and they've all been done. It's a matter of finding your own perspective and putting your own spin on it.
Yeah, I feel like younger comics would get more upset about using the same premise as another comic versus older comics who maybe understand that. Or
well, and I don't know. I mean, because some of I suppose younger comics, they're just that being a hack and stealing this and blah blah blah. But that also it goes back to the inexperience. Yeah. They don't, don't get it. They have 3 minutes, and I think it's the best 3 minutes that's ever been written. Yeah. And then the funny thing is, a lot of times you really listen to their material, and you're like, yeah, actually, they kind of lifted that premise and that from another comedian that they probably seen on TV. It's very, very familiar to somebody famous. Who, they probably are a fan of.
Yeah. I do enjoy watching new comic, someone who's done their first set ever. I do kind of like that. Not for to make fun of them necessarily, but I like to see kind of where I've started, but see it in the flesh, Yep. Even though it's not necessarily the same material, but to see that same nervous energy and how other people do it. Some people do really well their first time. They just come off very likable. Yeah.
Yep. And then they do their second or third time and they eat total dick. Yeah. That's great too. Yeah. Because it's going to happen. Yeah. I know. Terrible. It's one of them things though, for me too, I really enjoy watching comedians when they first start and watching them develop over time. That's one of the greatest things is to see a comic start, and whether they're good or terrible when they start, but then see them get really good as they develop.
I got
that development.
I got a really nice message from Bo Gella a couple weeks ago, or maybe a month or two ago, And he was, just telling me that he had, like, seen that I did a set somewhere and that I had, like, come a long way from where I had been. And that's, like, it's a cool thing to hear from other people, that they see it and they notice it.
Yeah.
And
because it tells you that you're growing, and that's the important part with comedy is that we all need to grow and evolve and keep working on material and keep trying to get better.
Yeah.
Because then if you don't, you end up being one of those comics that I was talking about at the beginning where they just do the same 3 to 5 minutes and that's all they ever do.
Yeah. I was like my first 6 months in, I was a little, because I had been just doing that, doing the same 5 minutes, doing the same 3 minutes, doing the same 5 minutes. And then I think I just kind of like broke through that a little bit, and started like adding like new things, like a new little thing once every like week or 2 or 3. And, I don't think I'm as worried about that. Sometimes it's a little, like, COVID has been not good for my writing. As much time as I have, I don't do as many things.
I don't think you're the only one having issues.
Yeah,
with that. But that's where, for me, like, I've written some new stuff, but not because of experiences or whatever. But I've been finding that going through old material that not necessarily material that didn't work and trying to rewrite it or improve it and that kind of thing too. So and then that has spawned other ideas where I'm like, oh yeah, I listened to a joke that I did and it didn't work, but then it like kind of gives me another idea for a different like take on it, and then it's a whole different joke altogether. So I'm still writing something new essentially.
Yeah. And are you still doing the joke review show?
I haven't did that in a little while because I've been busy with some other stuff, but the renewed I've been trying to do it because I changed the format where I'm having multiple guests on it, and then and it worked out pretty good.
Yeah.
So I just had some stuff I had to finish up, and I'm gonna try to bring it back. So
yeah, that was cool. Like seeing people work their way through their old stuff, and then seeing other people inject their own ideas into that. And did people like walk away with like stuff that they really wanted?
Every time we've did it, every time I've did the show, people have walked away with some ideas and some other perspectives on the material.
Yeah,
I just doing it the first few times before I changed the format, I got a lot of different perspectives on some of my older material that I was trying to rework, and I've actually some of it. I've used. I've been doing some stuff, and I'm probably going to use it in the taping because it's more family friendly type material or whatever. So
cool.
I've got like a different take on a joke that I was trying to work out. So yeah, I benefited. So I guess there's that. I benefited. So hey, there's that. But yeah, I feel like the guests, everybody that I've had on that show, has had pretty good feedback and seemed like they really got something out of the sessions.
Yeah.
Which is good, because that's the idea. It's a good writing exercise for people. And I really like the aspect of, because a lot of times other comedians are watching it, and so you get some really good ideas out of it.
Yeah, I've seen people throw things out in the comments even.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I'm talking about. Like, because a lot of times comics are the ones, the comments that are coming in are coming from other comics that I know that are watching the show.
Yeah, and I think something that like that appeals more to comics than it maybe does
absolutely
to like
does.
General. Like it's a little too like in the book or whatever.
Oh yeah, it's like inside baseball is what it says.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And this whole podcast really is. Like I have a very niche audience on this podcast, and I'm aware of that.
Yeah.
Because this is more for comics that are doing comedy, and comics that are mainly newer comics. Comics that are probably 0 to 5 years in. This is more their thing. The other show that it's also more for comics because it's a fun writing thing, or creatives or whatever. So that, and even that's more of it was streaming it was fun in the sense because you can have other comics contribute without being on the show. But it was more, and that was kind of the purpose of streaming it. But the show itself was more about working on material with comics. Just doing a workshop, getting something out of it. So
yeah, I know a lot of people have said they're not a big fan of like in-person workshops, but I don't know. Joe Christensen has his on Sundays, and I have not gone to.
I know.
Since the
I
first
haven't
one,
either.
But I should be going. The first one I went to, I got like material out of that, and I guess I'm not too prideful to take, advice or input from other people. So I do like to hear where maybe I'm having a blind spot on a joke that could be so much funnier if I just like addressed one thing.
Yep. I think that's one of the biggest issues comics have is they're getting past their ego and not wanting to take advice from other comics.
Yeah.
Like I get, because I feel like, and you don't necessarily, because I've always believed you don't have to take anybody's advice, but at least listening to it without being arrogant about it, chances are, a comic that just started doing comedy that maybe did 3 open mics, they're going to try to give me advice on something, probably not going to be worth my time to do whatever. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. Or if somebody that was at the show that's not a comic wants to offer advice, I immediately, I'm not interested in that. Comics, I don't care what level they're at. I'll listen. I don't always use it, but I've got some good stuff from other comics. I feel like that's one of the biggest things comics can do is listen to other comics. Because it's a different perspective on it.
Yeah, I think I was 7 months in, and I had been using the Mike Brody list, and then finally I met Mike at an open mic somewhere, and he told a joke, and then afterwards I just threw one little idea in there, and he goes, "That's good. I like that." And I don't know if he ever ended up doing anything with it, but he genuinely listened to what I had to say, and I thought it was cool. And it also kind of gave me the point, never be too prideful to listen to.
No, absolutely.
Input.
Yep, because it's important. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all trying to get better. That's the idea. Do you have pre-show tradition that you do, or ritual?
I'm not
Besides
a very
eating edibles and being sad about losing your hand.
I'm not a very ritualistic person, but I generally I always walk away after a set. I always will leave the room or the building after a set, whether I did good or whether I did bad. I have to leave and
So you have a post show.
I have a post show,
post set
Yeah.
tradition, and that's leaving.
Yeah, it's not even leaving. I go back in, but if someone's going on after me, I will not. I've never seen a person set that came right after mine.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
I always walk out.
I'm kind of the same. I have to go out and get air. Whether it doesn't matter.
That's kind of what it is.
It doesn't matter if it was good or bad. I have to go outside and just kind of let the adrenaline kind of settle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely can relate to that.
Yeah. And then before set, I just kind of flip through my phone and look at the things I want to say. And if I had a funny thought come to me, I try to repeat it in my head so I can just say that or do it. But generally, I'm not a very ritualistic person. But it is exactly like you said, it is decompressing or coming down, bring your energy
decompressing.
down.
That's the word. You got to go decompress.
Yeah.
That's definitely the word. Now, I'd like to finish up on a fun little thing that I do called Pick a Number. Before we get to that, and you don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, but what happened with your hand? How did that happen?
Okay, so
now I'm generally curious.
Yeah.
It's come up throughout the episode. I seen the scars.
Yeah,
and I remember it happening, but now I'm really curious.
Yeah, so I work in a glass factory, and we make hand blown light fixtures, shades, lamp shades, and I work in the cold shop. And so basically I'm just grinding this glass so that the sharp knife edge is gone and that, you can hang it up and it looks pretty. Well, I was wearing a cut glove on my left hand and I wasn't wearing a cut glove on my right hand. And it was this piece. It's seated, so it's got a bunch of bubbles in it, which makes the structure and the integrity of the piece a lot weaker. And it just popped in my hands.
Oh, Jesus.
And so 1 second I'm just working, getting a thing done that had to go out, and it just popped in my hands, and I just saw blood and it's on this big grinding wheel, so as soon as my hand started bleeding, it dripped onto the wheel and started flinging at the wall.
God. Oh.
And I
It
looked
was like a horror movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just grabbed my arm by the wrist, and I can like see the meat of my hand. And I look over to my right, and my coworker sees me, and he freaks out. He runs out of there, and luckily enough, one of my coworkers was an EMT when he was like 20, and so he like go get like a roll of toilet paper, and someone ran and grabbed a piece of like a roll of toilet paper. They stuck it in my hand and wrapped it around with gauze, and I got into a car and we drove out to Regions Hospital, and I just remember being like really thirsty. I was really thirsty. And we go up to like the front desk, and they go, "All right, what's your name?" Jalen Russell. And they're like, "What's your social security code or number?" And I say my number. "What's your address? What's your date of birth?" I go, "Can I have some water?" And the security guard goes out and comes back with water. They come back with the water, and then they go, "He can't have that." It's like, okay, no water. And so then I go to the triage, and they go, "What's your name? What's your social security? What's your birthday?
Jesus
what
Christ.
happened?" I go, "Oh, this, and this. Can I have some water?" "No, you can't have water. You might be going into surgery." Okay. I get triaged into the emergency room, and they go, "What's your name? What's your social security number? What's your birthday?" I go, "Can I have water?" And they go, You can't have water.
You're definitely going into surgery.
You're definitely going into surgery." And I had like the largest I had like the largest ER room there. And there was like 15 doctors like looking at me.
Wow.
And I was like talk of the town.
I'm sure.
Like everyone knew about the guy who fucking cut his hand off. And then
So was it the glass from the light fixture that cut your hand, or because it popped in your hand you hit the knife, the grinder thing?
So it was the glass itself, so it popped, and I basically pushed the glass
Yeah, okay. So it was
into my hand.
Yep.
Yeah. And
wow.
yeah. So they reattached my tendons. And I was cracking jokes like the whole time, like coming in.
Of course.
Like, "Oh, you guys had to roll out the red carpet for me. I guess it started out white, but haha," stuff like that. And my boss was like, "You were cool as a cucumber." Like, I was more. I felt like I looked more worried than you did. I was like, well, I had to be, otherwise.
It's probably one of them things too. Like you go, whether you realize it or not, you probably go into like a shock, and so it ends up becoming a natural defense system.
Yeah, why are you guys being all weird about this?
Yeah,
this is
like,
normal. What do you mean? I'm
exactly,
fine.
Yeah, you're just like natural defense system goes up, and you're like, I can't do this. Wow, that's amazing. Well, we're glad you're still around.
Yeah.
All right, so now we're going to end on pick a number. You pick a number between 1 and 20, and I'm going to ask you a corresponding question.
All
They're
right.
just fun questions.
13.
13. Lucky number 13. How many friendships have you ruined because you refused to play a game of Monopoly mercifully?
The last game I played was with my family, actually. The last game in Monopoly I played was with my family, and I had just read on Reddit, like, the ultimate Monopoly strategy. You buy all the houses, and then you buy all the houses you can. You buy all the low rent property, buy all the houses, take all of the houses away so no one else can upgrade their properties. My brother also reads Reddit, and so he knew what I was going to do, and so he gaslit my mom into believing that he like told her I was trying to win. He's like, "He's just trying to win right now, so don't sell him that property." I went, "Yeah, Mom, I'm trying to win. We're playing fucking Monopoly.
We're
playing a
trying
game." And so she's like, "Well, I don't know. I think I'm gonna go with him." And so she sold him his property that he wanted, and then he won in 3 rounds.
Oh man. Wow.
So I think it was the other way around. He was being less merciful than I was.
And so now you don't talk to your brother.
Now I don't. Yeah.
Now you're like, deuces to the family.
Yeah.
It's like, this is the day that I moved out of the family's house.
Yeah.
It's like, I've had enough.
I mean, to be fair, I was trying to gentrify like all the low rent property.
Oh man, people get, they take their gaming serious. They get intense.
Yeah.
That's funny. All right. And anything you want to promote? Where can people find you on the social media?
Yeah, I am the producer of the Awful Service podcast. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We do a weekly podcast. It's out on all the major platforms, Spotify, iTunes, whatever. Those are the only two I do.
Same places that you can find this one.
Yeah, exactly.
If you can find this one, you can find that one.
Absolutely. And then I'm on Twitter, Telling Tall Tales, Instagram, Telling Tall Tales. I don't have a public Facebook account, but if you want to see me argue with annoying people, follow me on Facebook, I guess.
Aren't we all doing that? All right. Thank you for joining me.
The Art of Bombing is a Blitzed Entertainment production. Hosted and produced by Dan Bublitz Jr., The Art of Bombing intro music was written and performed by John Holt. All other music used in this podcast was under the Creative Commons license. If you would like to help The Art of Bombing, you can do so by subscribing, rating, and reviewing our show on whatever podcast application you use to listen to The Art of Bombing. For previous episodes, blogs, and more, visit artofbombingpod.com. Have a great week. And remember, stay safe so you can live to love.